A really terrific achievement. Each subject is consistently outperforming the Northern Ireland average for equivalent schools, and indeed for schools which are in groups supposedly above them. So much about the academic. The year that passed, the year that your sons and daughters were here last year, was an extremely special year. It was the year of St. Paul, designated by Pope Benedict in honour of the great, I was going to call him an apostle, but certainly the great scribe who wrote so many letters. Those, when you go to Mass, it's the letter to the Ephesians, to the Corinthians, countless letters that St. Paul wrote. And last year was set up specially to honour him. And just some of the places that St. Paul's pupils were in last year. An international trip to Brazil, and it started off in Sao Paulo, which means St. Paul, so that was particularly appropriate. Off to Romania, then after Christmas. The pilgrimage to Rome in February. And everyone who participated on that pilgrimage to Rome, and Brendan Conley has already referred to it, certainly I would regard it as the most significant and rewarding experience of my entire teaching career. I have never felt prouder of a school and a group of young people than I did on that Sunday evening in St. Peter's when the St. Paul's choir sang. It was an absolutely, there is no way to describe it actually. You would have just needed to be there to know what it was like. Nerve-tingling is what I've written here. And I think that probably describes it as well as I can describe it. I'd like to give my personal thanks to Mr. Colin Murphy and Miss Bridie McAvine, who led the choir so magnificently on that occasion, and to Mr. Brendan Conley, who was the chief organiser, ably assisted by Mrs. Michelle Murphy from the front office. As well as that, in case you think that's not enough, to go to Brazil, Romania and Rome, were they ever in school, groups of students were also in England, Spain and France. And in September we had an exchange to Sweden. And in October our group went back on what was the annual trip to Kenya. So that's a lot of travel for a school. And I was delighted the other day when Mr. Danny Murray came to me and he said, I think we'll get a new display made to show the global aspect of St. Paul's. And it's in next door. First time I've seen it was tonight, it's only just arrived. It's in next door in the gym where the young people were getting their photographs taken. And it is just huge to look to see the places that St. Paul's students have been, or that their past pupils are currently working in. And a member of our Board of Governors here tonight, Mrs. Eileen Fern, all of our children came through St. Paul's. All of them have done extremely well. And our daughter Catherine is, as we speak, or has been in the last few days, in Afghanistan, where she works and comes home on a fairly regular basis. And we are so proud of the many young people who work abroad and who have been through this school. Don't worry, nearly finished. I mentioned earlier on that we had with us a representative of St. Patrick's in Contegan, in Father Tom MacDonald. And I know so far I've been very upbeat with what we're saying, and we're talking about all the great achievements of St. Paul's. But unfortunately, this week has been touched with a bit of sadness as well. Because for those of you who regularly watch the news, you will have heard of a brutal murder in Kenya of an Irish priest, Father Jeremiah Roach. Now, Father Jerry was a good friend to St. Paul's, and indeed several of our students and staff had the privilege of knowing him from their trips to Kenya. And I would ask on all our behalves that God would now look after him, as Father Jerry looked after so many others during his long ministry abroad. And I would like at this time to call for just a few seconds silence to honour the memory of Father Jeremiah Roach. Thanks very much indeed. Very shortly I'm going to hand over to the Minister here. I'm sure she'll have a few words to say to you as well. But before I do that, one last thing I would like to do is I would like to publicly congratulate again our under-16 Beasley Herald Cup team, who this year have won our very first Ulster Colleges title. We moved out of vocational schools last year to enter the colleges. And Mr. Rafferty, when he spoke here the other night, he talked about people saying to him, was he wise, that it would only be a year or two till we'd be looking back into the vocational schools. But I think it pays to listen sometimes when Mr. Rafferty speaks, because both himself and indeed myself were very sure that our boys would do themselves proud within the colleges section. And this year, by winning the under-16, we defeated several grammar schools along the way, and indeed several other schools, and it was a great sense of pride to see those boys lift the cup and try and do backflips on the field out in Salmon on final day. And I'd like to thank the staff involved on everybody's behalf. Mr. Rafferty, Mr. Digney, who I'm told is the main man. He was the man. And Mr. Quinn, the man from the Loch Shore, a Tyrone man in St. Paul's, and making a great contribution to the school, and indeed the whole PE department, male and female. Also the parents who supplied the players, and did the taxi runs to pick up after training in the evenings, and travel to matches to offer support. And also all the clubs that these boys represent, because their clubs should be very proud of them, and indeed the clubs have put such an amount of input into them and investment in them. That's a great help to us as a school, and I hope we're giving back to the clubs at least as much as they're giving to us. Congratulations also to Caelan Traynor, year 13, on being selected as our first college's All-Star. And that's a fantastic achievement. And really, he's only a year 13 student, and I hope that by next year maybe there's a few more All-Stars coming into the school, but we'll have to wait and see. Caelan's a very worthy recipient and a great ambassador for St. Paul's in every way, and we'll get a chance to see him later on. I think it's time now for me maybe to stop. I can feel the heat rising up there. I'm going to now ask our Minister, Katrina Ruan, to say a few words to you. Thank you very much indeed.